Bond, James Bond. Dr. No wasn't just the first Bond film. It was the dangerous experiment that launched a billion-dollar franchise. What audiences saw was suave sophistication. Sean Connery in a tuxedo. Ursula Andress walking out of the sea. Today, we're diving deep. Here are 20 weird facts about Dr. No, 1962. You didn't know, told in descending order. From lawsuits to censorship to accidents that almost stopped production cold, the truth is far stranger than the fiction. Stick around, because the bonus fact will change how you see Bond forever. So let's begin. Number 20. Bond was almost played by someone else. It's impossible now to imagine anyone but Sean Connery as James Bond. Yet, he wasn't the studio's first choice. Producers Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman considered Cary Grant. Yes, Hollywood's debonair icon. But Grant was already in his late 50s and refused to commit to more than one film. Others floated, included David Niven and Patrick McGoohan, who turned it down due to the character's immorality. Connery, relatively unknown at the time, walked into his audition with raw charm but rough edges. Reportedly, he didn't even bother to iron his suit. What won the producers over wasn't polish, but danger. Broccoli's wife recalled watching Connery move like a panther. The studio executives weren't convinced, but Connery sealed it after screen tests, and Ursula Andress herself approved. What fans didn't know: the most successful casting in history nearly never happened, hinging on one young actor's refusal to play by the rules. Number 19. Ursula Andress couldn't be heard. When Ursula Andress stepped out of the Caribbean surf in that white bikini, cinema changed. That image became one of the most famous in movie history. But here's the twist. The voice you hear in Dr. No isn't hers. Andress had a heavy Swiss-German accent that filmmakers feared would distract audiences. So they dubbed her entirely, using actress Nikki van der Zyl for dialogue and Diana Copeland for singing. It wasn't unusual. Dubbing was common then. But it shocked audiences later when they learned Andress's iconic lines were spoken by someone else. Not Andress, but van der Zyl. What's weirder, van der Zyl went on to dub many Bond women throughout the 60s, becoming the secret voice of Bond girls. Yet her work was uncredited. The glamour belonged to Andress, but the actual sound of Honey Rider was built in the studio, a fabrication hidden for decades. Number 18. The spider scene almost killed Sean Connery. One of the most chilling moments in Dr. No is when Bond wakes to find a tarantula crawling up his arm. Viewers shiver. But here's the truth. Connery did too. He was terrified of spiders. The production used a live tarantula for realism, but Connery refused to let it touch his bare skin. To solve this, they used a sheet of glass placed over him, with the spider crawling on top. The camera angle hiding the barrier. But in some shots, the stunt double Bob Simmons actually endured the spider on his body. Simmons later admitted he thought he'd die because tarantula bites can be fatal. Connery wasn't just acting. His real fear bled through. It wasn't slick Hollywood fakery. It was raw terror. The audience saw Bond unflinching, but the actor behind the mask was a man fighting his phobia, while his stunt double risked his life for the shot. Number 17. Jamaica was chaotic behind the scenes. Filming in Jamaica gave Dr. No its lush, exotic atmosphere. But it wasn't paradise behind the camera. The production faced logistical nightmares, limited equipment, tropical storms, and sweltering heat that damaged film stock. Mosquitoes swarmed the cast and crew, forcing them to drench themselves in repellent between takes. Local extras were sometimes pulled off the street last minute, leading to continuity errors. And the famous set for Dr. No's lair? It was cobbled together on a shoestring budget, less than $1 million for the entire film. Art director Ken Adam stretched resources to the breaking point, painting plywood and using simple lighting tricks to create grandeur. Crew members joked that Bond was battling not just Dr. No, but the island itself. What audiences saw as exotic luxury was really sweat, improvisation, and survival, turning an underfunded shoot into an unexpected triumph. Number 16. The film was nearly banned in Britain. You'd think Britain would embrace its new cinematic hero. Instead, Dr. No faced moral outrage. The British Board of Film Censors worried about its violence and sexual content. One critic famously called Bond a sadist and claimed the film glamorized immorality. Church leaders condemned it, and newspapers fumed over Ursula Andress's bikini as scandalous. Even the Daily Mail ran furious editorials. There was talk of cutting whole sequences, the tarantula scene, the executions, even Honey Rider's introduction. But producers fought back, arguing that Bond represented escapism, not corruption. Against all odds, the film was released largely intact, though rated A, meaning children under 16 required an adult. Ironically, the controversy only fueled audience curiosity. What was supposed to be censored became free publicity. The scandal turned Dr. No into a must-see event, proving that outrage can sell tickets better than marketing. Number 15. Sean Connery was taught to be Bond. Sean Connery didn't simply become James Bond overnight. In fact, when he was cast, he was considered too rough, too unrefined, closer to a street brawler than a gentleman spy. The producers worried audiences wouldn't buy him as suave. So they brought in a secret weapon, a movement coach named Terrence Young, the film's director. Young dressed Connery in tailored suits, introduced him to fine dining, and personally taught him how to walk, talk, and even order wine like Bond. Offset, Young escorted Connery to casinos and nightclubs, drilling him on sophistication until his working-class edges were polished. But the raw masculinity remained. That mix, danger and elegance, became the Bond formula. What audiences didn't know, the man they saw confidently lighting a cigarette at the baccarat table was once an unsure actor playing dress-up. It wasn't just acting. It was training, transformation, and the creation of a myth. Number 14. The Dr. No casting drama. Dr. No, the villain, could have looked very different. The role was first offered to Noel Coward, the flamboyant British playwright, who reportedly replied, "Dr. No, 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 no." Then, the producers pursued Max von Sydow, who later appeared as Blofeld in Never Say Never Again. But in the end, the part went to Joseph Wiseman. Here's the twist. Wiseman was uneasy with being typecast as a villain. Off-screen, he was nothing like the cold, calculating Dr. No. He worried audiences would forever see him as sinister. His discomfort bled into production. He reportedly kept to himself, maintaining distance from the cast, amplifying his eerie presence. To complicate matters, Wiseman's voice was also partially overdubbed to give him an even more chilling sound. Not Coward, not von Sydow, but Wiseman, an actor who reluctantly stepped into infamy, shaping Bond's first great nemesis while wrestling with his own doubts. Number 13. The Dragon Tank That Wasn't. One of Dr. No's most bizarre moments comes when locals speak of a terrifying dragon guarding Crab Key. What Bond discovers is no mythical beast. It's a clunky, armored vehicle, fitted with a flamethrower. The prop was built on a small budget and barely worked. On set, the so-called dragon overheated, smoked, and sputtered. Crew members joked it was more dangerous to the operators inside than to Connery. In fact, the flamethrower rig misfired during testing, nearly torching part of the set. Audiences in 1962 were still captivated. The Cold War paranoia let them accept strange threats. But modern viewers often laugh at its awkward design. Still, that dragon symbolized something bigger. Bond movies could turn even budget limitations into memorable spectacle. Not a real monster, but a mechanical illusion. What seemed threatening on screen was in reality a fragile, half-broken contraption cobbled together in desperation. Number 12. Censorship abroad was fierce. If Britain thought Dr. No was racy, Other countries went even further. Ireland's censor board demanded whole sequences cut, including scenes with sexual innuendo and violence. In South Africa, the apartheid government objected to the film showing black actors in positions of authority. In the United States, posters of Ursula Andress in her bikini were toned down for some cities, where theaters feared backlash. Even television trailers had to be censored before release. Not violent enough to be a war film, not innocent enough to pass without edits. Dr. No walked a tightrope worldwide. Ironically, the cuts only added to the movie's allure. Audiences heard whispers of forbidden material, of danger too hot for the censors. The result? Crowds lined up. What moral guardians feared would corrupt, instead, sparked the beginning of global Bond fever. Not suppression, but obsession. The harder they tried to hide it, the more people wanted it. Number 11. The gun barrel almost didn't happen. The Bond series is famous for its opening gun barrel sequence. Bond walking, turning, and firing at the camera. But here's the kicker. Sean Connery wasn't the one filmed in Dr. No. Due to scheduling issues, it was stuntman Bob Simmons who performed the iconic turn and shoot. His silhouette launched the most famous film opening of all time. For years, audiences believed it was Connery until later films swapped in the real actor. What's stranger, the sequence itself nearly didn't make it into the final cut. United Artists executives thought it was too gimmicky and worried it distracted from the main story. Director Terrence Young fought hard to keep it, insisting it would brand the series with instant identity. He was right. What was nearly scrapped became one of cinema's most recognizable images, not Connery's walk, but Simmons's stand-in. A fluke decision turned into a Bond tradition spanning 6 decades. Number 10. Sean Connery's brutal fight scene left injuries. The climactic brawl between Bond and Dr. No wasn't just choreographed Hollywood fakery. It was downright dangerous. Sean Connery insisted on performing much of the fight himself, determined to sell Bond as a real physical threat. But the cramped, metal-filled set of Dr. No's reactor chamber turned the fight into chaos. Connery reportedly suffered bruises, while Joseph Wiseman injured his hand during repeated takes. The crew had to reset props after every missed punch. At one point, a swing nearly connected with Connery's jaw for real. Yet that roughness gave the fight a primal energy. Watching it today, you can feel the risk, because it wasn't polished stunt work. It was messy, painful, and raw. Not staged elegance, but genuine danger. And if you've made it this far into Bond's first outing with us, go ahead and like and subscribe, because the next 9 secrets prove Dr. No was even wilder behind the scenes. Number 9. Budget was shockingly low. Audiences often assume Bond films were always expensive spectacles. Not true. Dr. No was made on a shoestring budget of about $1 million, tiny even in 1962 standards. To save money, the production reused sets, limited action sequences, and relied on clever editing instead of large-scale stunts. Ken Adam, the production designer, stretched every dollar with bold lighting, forced perspective, and illusions of grandeur. The now iconic control room with the nuclear reactor, built from painted plywood and simple lighting rigs. The aquarium in Dr. No's lair, just in large stock footage projected behind glass. The constraints forced ingenuity, creating a style that later Bond films with bigger budgets would emulate. What looked luxurious on screen was in truth bargain creativity, not opulence, but thrift. The illusion worked so well that audiences never realized they were watching one of the thriftiest blockbusters ever made. Number 8. Jack Lord hated playing Felix Leiter. American actor Jack Lord played Bond's CIA ally Felix Leiter, but behind the scenes, he clashed with producers. Lord, already a TV star, demanded more lines, more prominence, and higher billing. He envisioned Felix as Bond's equal, not a sidekick. The producers disagreed. Tensions grew so sharp that when future films came around, they never invited Lord back. He later became world famous for Hawaii Five-0, but fans still debate what his recurring Felix might have done for the series. Lord himself dismissed Dr. No as a small job, not realizing Bond would become cinematic history. Not camaraderie, but conflict. On screen, Bond and Felix worked as allies. Off-screen, the relationship fractured. What fans didn't know was that the character's vanishing act from sequels wasn't creative. It was personal, born of an actor's ego clashing with producer's vision. Number 7. The music that wasn't supposed to be iconic. The James Bond theme is one of cinema's most recognizable pieces of music, but its creation was chaotic. Composer Monty Norman wrote a melody, but producers worried it lacked punch. They brought in John Barry, who rearranged it with electric guitar, brass, and jazzy rhythms. The result was cinematic thunder. Yet, Norman retained sole credit, sparking decades of lawsuits. He successfully sued publications that claimed Barry wrote it, even though Barry's fingerprints are all over the final sound. What audiences didn't know? The anthem of sophistication and danger was born out of studio panic, hurried collaboration, and bitter disputes that lasted for years. Not harmony, but discord. The very theme that announced Bond to the world was a product of conflict, an uneasy mix of one man's melody and another's firepower. Number 6. The bikini that changed film forever. When Ursula Andress stepped onto that Jamaican beach in her white bikini, cinema shifted. Fashion houses scrambled to copy the design. Women across the globe wanted the Bond girl look, and even Andress admitted the scene made her a star overnight. But what's often overlooked is that the bikini itself was controversial. In the early 60s, bikinis were still viewed as daring, even scandalous. Some countries considered banning the film over that single scene. Yet, the moment helped normalize the bikini in mainstream culture, making it acceptable swimwear for millions of women. Andress later auctioned the bikini decades later for nearly $150,000, proving its cultural weight. Not just fabric, but revolution. The two-piece turned a struggling Swiss actress into an icon and redefined cinematic sensuality. What seemed like a costume choice was really a cultural earthquake. Number 5. The poisoned drink was real. One of Dr. No's tensest moments comes when Bond orders a drink, only to suspect it's poisoned. On set, that moment carried an extra sting. Sean Connery later admitted the glass he lifted during rehearsals wasn't just filled with harmless liquid. It sometimes contained alcohol, courtesy of mischievous crew members. Connery, trying to stay sharp, hated being caught off guard. But he rolled with it, turning irritation into performance. The tension you see, the hesitation before the sip, wasn't just acting. It was Connery double-checking reality. Not stagecraft, but uncertainty. That tiny edge of paranoia heightened the scene. What audiences didn't know: Bond's suspicion wasn't purely fictional. It was an actor responding to being thrown off balance in the most Bond-like way possible, by playing it cool while chaos swirled unseen. Number 4. Connery's paycheck was shockingly small. Sean Connery may have become the face of an empire, but in 1962, he was just another struggling actor. His paycheck for Dr. No? Around $6,000, roughly $16,000 at the time. It was modest, even by early 60s standards. Connery signed a multi-film contract without realizing how massive the franchise would become. By the time Goldfinger exploded, Connery was demanding raises and battling producers for fair compensation. The irony is brutal. The actor who embodied wealth, glamour, and power was underpaid while playing the world's richest spy. Not luxury, but exploitation. Bond's tuxedos sparkled on screen, but Connery himself went home to an ordinary apartment, still far from the fortune his likeness was generating. What audiences didn't see was the quiet financial tension that haunted the series' early years. Number 3. The car chase was nearly a disaster. Bond's first car chase, pursued along Jamaica's winding roads, looked smooth on film, but behind the scenes, it was a nightmare. The production lacked proper stunt cars, so they relied on stock vehicles and tricky rear projection shots. On one occasion, the car being used overheated mid-scene, filling the cabin with smoke. Connery had to bail out between takes, coughing from the fumes. The stunt drivers, meanwhile, pushed underpowered cars to their limits on treacherous, unpaved roads. Crew members recalled that one wrong turn could have sent a vehicle plunging into a ravine. What audiences didn't know: the glamour of Bond's precision driving was created out of mechanical breakdowns, camera tricks, and drivers risking their lives for realism. Not high-tech spectacle, but controlled chaos. The DNA of every Bond car chase to come was born in this messy, dangerous experiment. Number 2. The villain's hands were a visual trick. Dr. No's metallic hands were meant to be terrifying, the physical mark of his villainy. But on set, they were awkward props that constantly broke. Joseph Wiseman wore stiff, unwieldy gloves reinforced with metal fittings. They limited his movement so badly he couldn't even hold objects properly. In several takes, his hands slipped, props fell, and scenes had to be reshot. The crew improvised camera angles to disguise the clumsiness, but sharp-eyed viewers can still spot moments where Wiseman struggles. Not high-tech gadgetry, but theatrical illusion. The villain's frightening feature was, in reality, a burden that frustrated the actor. And yet, that stiffness, born of faulty props, made Dr. No's movement strange and unsettling, inadvertently creating the inhuman menace producers wanted all along. Number 1. Bond nearly died in his first film. The most shocking fact? Production safety was minimal, and Sean Connery nearly paid the price. During the scene where Bond and Honey Rider wade into contaminated waters near Dr. No's reactor, the filmmakers used oil drums filled with gasoline as floating set dressing. No one considered how dangerous it was to have open fuel in tropical heat, near hot lights, and surrounded by cast and crew. At one point, fumes ignited off-camera, creating a flash fire that terrified everyone. Luckily, no one was injured, but the scare forced a hasty rewrite of certain shots. What audiences didn't know: Bond's cinematic baptism by fire was almost literal. The suave agent who always escaped danger on screen was seconds away from disaster behind the camera. Bonus fact: Ian Fleming hated Sean Connery at first. Here's the twist that stuns fans. Ian Fleming, creator of James Bond, didn't want Sean Connery in the role. Fleming imagined Bond as an upper-class English gentleman, polished and aristocratic. He described Connery as an overgrown stuntman, unfit for the part. Fleming even toyed with the idea of changing Bond's background in future novels to make him Scottish, an attempt to reconcile the working-class Connery with the character. But after Dr. No's explosive success, Fleming reversed course, publicly praising Connery and embracing his rougher, more dangerous Bond. Not rejection, but reinvention. Connery didn't just play Bond. He reshaped him so completely that even his creator had to adapt. The agent audiences worshipped was not Fleming's Bond, but Connery's. And that legacy changed cinema forever. Dr. No was never supposed to be the juggernaut it became. It was low budget, doubted by critics, nearly censored, and plagued with risks. Yet from chaos came legend. What audiences saw was effortless style, but behind the scenes was sweat, fear, improvisation, and danger. The weird facts remind us that cinema's smoothest spy was forged in the roughest conditions. If you enjoyed uncovering the secrets of Bond's first mission, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and remember, in the world of movies, nothing is ever as smooth as it seems. Bond may have been licensed to kill, but the truth about Dr. No is licensed to shock.